He's been investigated by Congress, sued more than a half a dozen times, and his megachurch once was worth nearly $100 million. Now with his church showing financial strain, his wife filing for divorce, Bishop Eddie Long's finances are under the microscope. Investigative reporter Jody Fleischer has questionable business deals even Congress didn't uncover.
We've spent the past 6 months on the paper trail of Bishop Eddie Long, what little paper there is, because his church and its dozens of affiliated companies file very few public documents. And when we found Long acting as both the buyer and the seller on the same deal, following the money became next to impossible. Bishop Eddie Long's G-2 planes were certainly his loftiest symbols of power. He's flown presidents and rubbed elbows with the rich and famous. But just who was paying to keep the bishop flying high? A company called Bel Air Aviation bought the first plane in 2001, then leased it back to New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, even though Bel Air's address is the church. 2 years later, Long put the plane in his own name, signing as both buyer and seller. There's no price listed in FAA records. Long eventually sold that plane and bought this one, and signed a $30,000 a month lease with a for-profit audio-visual company. Their address is also the church. The lease says the company would pay the plane's property taxes, but tax records show the church did, nearly $85,000 worth. Long sold that plane in November 2010.
What you're describing is a very complicated series of transactions, maybe intentionally.
Jack Fishman spent 25 years as an investigator for the Internal Revenue Service. He says those transactions raise questions about Long's care in separating church property from his own. In court transcripts, Long, under oath, has said, basically, Bishop Eddie Long Ministries is Bishop Eddie Long, and that his tax-exempt nonprofit bought him this house on Hunt Valley Drive.
The assets of that charity have to go to a charitable purpose, or at the end of the life of that charity have to go to another charity, not to an individual.
In 2002, Long told the IRS the charity had dissolved and that all assets have been transferred to New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. But a year later, he signed this deed on behalf of the ministry, putting the house in his own name.
I would have some questions concerning the filing. It appears to be suspicious.
Then Long took out 3 more mortgages, including one for $1.6 million. In 2006, he finally did give the house to the church, but that last loan wasn't paid off until 2009. Does it appear that he was using the church to finance his personal debts?
On the face, it appears to be some very questionable transactions.
Senator Chuck Grassley led a congressional investigation into lavish lifestyles at 6 ministries, including Long's.
And I was very disappointed.
His report noted the $1.6 million mortgage Long took out, but the senator did not note the very next day Long made a loan of his own for $2 million to former Atlanta Brave and Falcon Brian Jordan for a failed luxury development in South Fulton.
If these things were going on in my church, I'd be asking questions.
And we tried. For months, a spokesman told us Long just wasn't available.
Bishop, we just want to ask you a couple of questions.
When we finally found him, Long never got out of his Bentley and drove away from our camera. And Long's personal financial troubles are mounting. He's agreed to a nearly $2 million settlement over a defaulted bank loan, and he owes $200,000 to a developer. Last summer, he settled with 5 young men who claim he seduced them. In October, church members sued Long over $1 million in failed investments sold by a man he endorsed.
Several have been contacted by persons who they described as Secret Service.
Channel 2 Action News has confirmed federal agents have questioned members of Bishop Eddie Long's church about a failed investment scandal. New at 6, the answers the agents are after. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jovita Moore in for Monica Pearson.
I'm Justin Farmer. Now, this is part of an ongoing case involving more than $1 million lost by church members who are now suing the investment company and the church. Investigative reporter Jody Fleischer has been working all day to confirm who's investigating, and she's here now with what she's found.
Justin, a spokesman for the Secret Service told me they are forensically examining computers and questioning people who lost money on those investments. And we've also confirmed the Georgia Secretary of State's office is investigating for securities violations to see if anyone broke the law.
He needs to be put under the jail, not in the jail.
Lillian Wells says she can't use the words she really wants to when describing Ephraim Taylor, a man who she calls clean-cut, charismatic, and a crook.
I think he knew what he was doing all along and just was there for a farce. You know, it was just all false.
Many of us, with our wealth and with our money, we're foolish.
Lillian says it turns out the foolish decision was trusting her pastor, Bishop Eddie Long, who endorsed Taylor during presentations at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Lillian and 9 other members lost more than $1 million. Her lawsuit says Taylor, in some cases, assured church members the investments were safe, conservative, and that they would provide guaranteed income. It turns out Taylor and his companies were not licensed to sell investments or render investment advice in Georgia.
Without Long and the church recommending this investment, what's the percentage chance that you would have done it?
I wouldn't have.
Lillian says that's exactly what she told federal agents from the Secret Service who questioned her last month about Taylor and the investments. A Secret Service spokesman also confirmed agents seized laptops from Bishop Long's inner circle of employees at the church. Lillian's attorney says Long should also be responsible for the investment losses.
With regard to the Georgia securities laws, he stepped out of the traditional role as a pastor and stepped into the role as a salesman of securities.
In fact, the lawsuit alleges New Birth and Bishop Long directly or indirectly received compensation from the other defendants for allowing them to render investment advice and to solicit the investment opportunities.
And if that is so, that would kind of mean that maybe he was a part of it.
Now here's where it gets tricky. The Secret Service initially told me it was merely assisting the DeKalb County Police Department and that they were the lead on the case. DeKalb now says it is not criminally investigating and handed the case over to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC has declined to comment, so has a spokesman for Bishop Long and the church. Justin?
Jody, thank you. Now more details on Ephraim Taylor and his seminars at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. The seminars were over 4 days in 2009. Taylor preached during a Sunday service. Here's a look at the video of a 2020 program profiling Taylor in 2007 as an up-and-coming millionaire. We also did some digging on Taylor's investment capital company. It's called City Capital. The Los Angeles Better Business Bureau gave the company an F because of customer complaints.